disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. Just use a 8mm wrench. Take that off and set it aside. Now we're going to take the airbag off. You want to use a pick or a blunt end object, so something that's not sharp on the end, something that's just flat like that. And right in this hole here, you're going to push in, and there's a release that you're trying to find. Push that release, and then the airbag will lift up a little bit. And then you're going to do the same on the other side. You don't have to flip the wheel around. I'm just showing you how to do this. And then just push on the other side. And you find it, then you can grab the airbag. Just spin this around again. The airbag comes up just like that. Disconnect these two connectors and use a pick or a straight blade screwdriver. Just release this little lock. It just goes up on both of those. And then there's two pins. Push on those pins, there and there. And this will slide up just like that. Do the same on this one. It slides up, and take the airbag. When you put the airbag down, make sure you set it down like this. Do not set it down upside down. Now you need to release this wire right here. This is for the horn. Push down on that little tab and twist to the left. You should be able to pop that out, just like that. Then use a 21mm socket. We're going to take this nut off. Just hold the steering wheel from turning. You can use your knee or just grab the steering wheel. And you want to make sure the wheels are straight when you do this, so that when you put it back together, you kind of have a reference where to go. Before I take this nut off completely, just want to shake the wheel back and forth. Being careful not to bend the wheel itself, but if you just wiggle it, you should be able to release it. And the nut there is going to prevent it from hitting you in the face. You can always use a steering wheel removing tool if you have the right tools set up for that, but you don't have to. Now take the nut off and pull the wheel off. Slide the wires through the hole. Set that aside. Underneath here, I'm going to take these two screws out. Use a 7mm socket. And then this panel comes down, just like that. You can either pull it out if you want to, or just prop it down like that, that's fine. And there's another screw here. Take that one out, same 7mm socket. And there's one over here. Take these two screws out, use a 7mm socket. Take that out if you have a Phillips head. And then just grab this panel. And you're just going to pull it forward, put it on the side. Take this panel off, use a 10mm socket. There's a bolt here and a bolt there. Slide that off. Take the lever off that allows you to adjust the steering wheel. Just grab the lever and pull, just like that. If you have to, you can get a pry tool underneath there and pry it out. Now grab this panel. There may be some screws in here. This vehicle does not have them, so double check, make sure there's no screws in there. And then just grab the panel, and there's a couple rubber pieces in the back. You just have to push those forward and pull it down. Now you need to take the screw off that goes straight up there. If you have an inverted torque socket or an E5 socket, you can use that. If you don't have one of those, you can always use a deep 4mm socket. That will work as well. Get right on there and take that off. Take Take that out. You can take the lever again and just adjust the column down. Just be careful. Don't get your fingers pinched. And then you want to slide up on this piece. Just pop it up. And slide it out. It's just clipped in. There's a wire tie right here. You want to cut that wire tie. Be careful not to cut any of the wires. And you can release these wires so they're a little loose. The ignition switch is right here. You can take a straight blade screwdriver and just pulling a little bit of pressure on the switch itself, just pop in there and then pop the other side. You could take 2 screwdrivers and just pop them both in if it makes it easier. Slide this down a little bit. Then we'll disconnect the connector. Just push on this little tab. Should be able to slide the harness out. There's a small retainer from the ignition switch. You want to slide that off from those wires. There we go. So you just want to push down on that tab and then you can slide the ignition switch right off. Be careful not to turn this wheel at all. That has to be timed just right, just like that. When you're installing a new one, you want to check the gear and make sure it's in the same position as the one you took out. When you take the old one out, put them next to each other and make sure the gear lines up just like that. If the gear was set up like that, then set that up. You can kind of line the teeth up with some different things on the ignition switch itself. So this one, when we took it out, it was just lined up like that. So that bigger tooth that's missing was down just a little bit, just like that. So we'll line this up and lock that in place. Take the connector, line the connector up. And lock it in, just like that. Make sure the wiring harness goes into this groove over here on the side. Now take the wires, make sure that larger wire goes through there and the smaller one just next to it. And then just take a wire tie, go around these two, and there's this little like shelf underneath there. You want to just make sure it's secure in the middle of there, just how it was when you took it apart. And take some cutters and just trim the excess. Take the screw and line that up underneath here. And tighten that down, just snug. It is just plastic, so that's good enough. And take the lower cover. You want to line that up. There's a couple pins on the front. You want to line those up with those slots. Lock that in place. If you're having trouble getting that lower piece in, you may have to use the adjustment and just adjust this up a little bit just so it lines up. And then in the back there's a couple of rubber pieces that you kind of have to slide on. You just grab them and slide them, attach them to the bottom piece. Now take the adjuster handle, line that up and just click it in place. Just be careful with that. Don't get your fingers stuck up here if you're trying to do that. I'll put this panel in place, line that up, take the 2 bolts that go in here, get those started, and tighten them down. Now slide this panel in place. There is some clips. You want those clips to line up. Then take the screws, get the screws started. Two up top. There's two down below. And put the bottom two screws in, get those started. Once they're all started, tighten them down. Now this lower panel, line this up. And put the two screws in. Tighten those down. Take the steering wheel, slide these wires through that square hole in the bottom. Then line that up. There is a line on the steering wheel and a line on the shaft, or an arrow on the steering wheel, so make sure those are lined up. Take the nut, get the nut started. Tighten it down. Now torque this nut to 30 foot-pounds. Now take this wire, the red wire, you're going to line that up in the hole. And just push it in until it locks in place. It should be good. Take the airbag, line the connectors up, just like that. Lock them in place and then push down on the retainers. Line that up, make sure the wires are out of the way, and push it down. Now connect the battery. Snug it down. This next step is going to require the key being left on. You need to do a theft relearn procedure. And a good idea is to take a battery charger and put it on the battery, because the key is going to be left on for more than half an hour to do this procedure. So just hook up a battery charger and turn it on. Now we're going to take the key and try to start the vehicle. And the vehicle's not going to start. You may hear it crank over even, and you're going to see this theft light flashing. You want to leave the key in the on position for 10 minutes while that flashes. Once that turns off, we're going to repeat the process. Shut the key off. Try to start the engine. When the engine doesn't start, again, that will be flashing for 10 minutes. And then one more time, do it, repeat, do it a third time. After the third time, you should be able to shut it off and the vehicle should start and you should be all set.